Business news now for you on France 24 this evening with Kate Moody. Hi to you, Kate.
Hi, Nadia.
You're going to be starting us off then with Huawei, which is stepping up its legal offensive against both Canada and the United States.
Yeah, the Chinese tech giant, remember, Nadia, is really fighting two distinct battles here. Its chief financial officer, who's also the daughter of the company's founder, is suing the Canadian government over her ongoing detention. She's set to appear in court on Wednesday, when a judge will decide a date for hearings on her possible extradition to the United States. Separately, the New York Times and Financial Times are reporting that Huawei is preparing a separate lawsuit against the American government over its decision to ban federal agencies from using Huawei technology. Luke Schrago reports.
Beijing isn't mincing its words. It wants telecoms giant Huawei's chief financial officer released from detention in Canada.
The US and Canada abused bilateral extradition treaties to take coercive measures on Chinese citizens. This is a serious violation of their legitimate rights and interests.
Canada arrested Meng Wanzhou at Washington's request while she was changing planes in Vancouver in December. The United States accuses her of lying to banks over her company's dealings with Iran. This as the US lobbies its international partners to reduce their reliance on tech from Huawei, the world's largest telecoms equipment provider, over security concerns.
Chinese law requires these firms to support and assist Beijing's vast security apparatus without any democratic checks and balances on access to or use of data that touches the networks or equipment installed and supported by these companies around the world.
Canada, for its part, is caught in the middle. China arrested two of its citizens shortly after Meng's detention, and a third, already serving a prison term there, was retried and sentenced to death. As she faces what could be months or even years of extradition proceedings, Meng's own lawyers were gearing up for another legal battle, this one targeting Canadian authorities. They allege Meng's belongings were unlawfully searched and that she was compelled to provide information without counsel for 3 hours before she was arrested.
Let's check in on the day's trading action now. There's still a lot of focus on those ongoing trade tensions between the US and China. The major European indices saw a slight boost following weekend reports that the two sides could be close to a deal. Just the DAX closing slightly below the flat line there in Frankfurt. Wall Street has taken a sharp turn downwards. The Dow Jones plunged over 350 points earlier on, recovering slightly now. Boeing is among the worst performers. The plane maker shares down 2%. That slide began after the U.S. Commerce Department reported a slowdown in U.S. construction spending at the end of last year. Carlos Ghosn's family has asked the UN Human Rights Office to investigate what they believe is a case of arbitrary detention and forced confessions. The former chairman of Nissan and Renault has been under arrest in Tokyo since November the 19th, accused of financial misconduct, charges he denies. On Monday, his lawyers submitted a third request for him to be released from a Japanese prison on bail, saying that he will accept camera surveillance if necessary. His family has repeatedly complained of the conditions under which Ghosn's being held and say his rights have been violated.
The conditions of detention are particularly dehumanizing. We have to stress. We have called on the UN working group to conclude that Carlos Ghosn's detention is arbitrary.
The CEO of Peugeot Citroën has criticized the European Union's efforts to push the car industry into electric technology. Speaking to Le Figaro newspaper, Carlos Tavares said that politicians were forcing car makers to transition too quickly after a deal in December to cut emissions. He said that agreement could jeopardize some 13 million jobs and destabilize the European economies which depend on the auto industry. Moving on to some of the day's other business headlines now. Lyft could become the first ride-hailing app to hit the U.S. stock exchange after filing documents for an initial public offering. Lyft is Uber's biggest competitor in the U.S. with a 39% share of the American market, but it's reported 3 consecutive years of heavy financial losses. Greece plans to issue a 10-year government bond for the first time in nearly a decade after Moody's raised its credit rating last week. The agency said that Athens' reforms had been effective. The country officially exited its international bailout programs in August. The sale could come as early as Tuesday and raise up to €2.5 billion. And about half of French companies have missed a Friday deadline to report statistics on gender equality. Firms with more than 1,000 employees were supposed to publish their index as part of a new effort to reduce inequality in the workplace. The Labour Ministry is expected to make public remarks on those results on Tuesday. Worth keeping in mind as we prepare to hear about that, Nadia, on Tuesday, the average gap for men and women holding the same position at companies in France is still 9%.
A long way to go, clearly, Kate. Thank you very much indeed. Kate Moody there with our business update on the programme.